Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I offer an update on the case of Barry and Suzanne Morphew? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I will offer a brief background of this case, move to an updated timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Barry Lee Morphew was born in 1967 and lived in Indiana. In high school, he met a woman named Suzanne, who had been born in 1971. They became romantically involved, and in 1994, they married. The couple went on to have 2 daughters. In 2018, the family moved into a $1.5 million house in Maysville, Colorado, 11 miles west of Salida. Barry owned a landscaping company, and Suzanne worked at a nonprofit organization. It may have seemed like Suzanne was living an ideal life, but clearly she wasn't happy. Right away, she started having an affair with a Michigan man named Jeff Libler, who she had met in high school. On at least 6 occasions, Suzanne and Jeff traveled to various locations to meet. It is reasonable to believe they were not doing this to engage in vigorous and stimulating conversation. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. On Saturday, May 9, 2020, at 2:03 p.m., 49-year-old Suzanne Morphew sent a selfie to her boyfriend Jeff. At 2:11 p.m., she sent another message to him. Little did she know this would be the last message she would ever send. After 2:30 p.m., her phone was never active again. On Sunday, May 10, Mother's Day, at about 5:58 p.m., the police were notified that Suzanne was missing. Barry informed officers that he last saw his wife on Sunday. It was at about 5 a.m. He was leaving for Broomfield, Colorado, in preparation for a landscaping job. This is almost 3 hours north of his house. He didn't talk to Suzanne as she was still asleep. She was the only one in the house when he left because his daughters were on a road trip in Utah. A few days later, the police found Suzanne's undamaged bicycle just off Route 50, not far from her house. After this, her bicycle helmet was found almost a mile away from where the bicycle was discovered. It seemed clear to law enforcement that Barry was responsible for his wife's disappearance. He had a motive to kill her because she was having an affair. On May 4, 2021, almost a year after his wife's disappearance, Barry Morphew was arrested and charged with several offenses, including first-degree murder. The state believed Barry murdered Suzanne on Saturday, May 9, 2020, right after her phone became inactive. Prosecutors made several mistakes while trying to build a case against Barry, including withholding exculpatory evidence and missing deadlines. Several of their expert witnesses were excluded by the judge. The state didn't feel too confident about getting a conviction, especially without Suzanne's body. They could not prove that she was dead. On April 19, 2022, all the charges against Barry Morphew were dismissed without prejudice, which means he could find himself charged again in the future. Barry filed a civil rights lawsuit against various law enforcement officials, seeking $15 million in damages. Excitement for big money was in the air, but another development came along which may have motivated Barry to postpone any cash-counting parties which may have been scheduled. On September 22, 2023, officers were searching for a missing woman unrelated to the Morphew investigation in a desert area near Moffett, Colorado, 46 miles south of Maysville. During the search, they found the remains of Suzanne in a shallow grave. The state had now solved one of their problems. It was clear that Suzanne was dead. In April 2024, the results of the autopsy were made public. Here is a summary. From the shallow grave where Suzanne was found, investigators recovered partial skeletal remains, a medical port, a bullet, and weathered clothing. The medical port was there because Suzanne received maintenance chemotherapy after a cancer remission. Presumably, the bullet was there because this is how she was killed. However, no trauma was detected in her bones. Perhaps she suffered a gunshot wound in soft tissue, or maybe the bullet is unrelated to her death. The clothing included a balaclava, a hooded sweatshirt, a leather work glove, a green tank top, and shorts. The autopsy indicated that Suzanne was killed by undetermined means. she was a victim of homicide. 3 different drugs were found in her bones. Butorphanol, a synthetic opioid that is used in nasal spray for treating migraine headaches. Isoprene, a powerful tranquilizer used to sedate large animals like pigs and elephants. And medetomidine, a sedative that is used on canines as well as other animals. The combination of these drugs is marketed as an injectable chemical immobilizer for wildlife. It's an animal tranquilizer used on deer and other large game in order to capture and handle them safely. At the time I'm making this video, no one is charged in connection with the murder of Suzanne Morphew. Now moving to my analysis. The discovery of Tranquilizer in Suzanne's remains has the potential to be a game changer as far as seeking justice for her. In light of this discovery, should Barry Morphew once again be charged with Suzanne's murder? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Barry is guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. 4 days before she disappeared, Suzanne sent a text message to Barry saying that she was done. When speaking to investigators, Barry initially implied that his marriage was perfect and Suzanne had no intention of leaving him. Clearly, he was lying. On May 8, 2020, 2 days before Suzanne disappeared, she put a note in her phone indicating that on May 6, Barry accused her of having a boyfriend. Barry clearly knew about the affair, which gave him a motive to kill his wife. Suzanne wrote text messages to friends indicating that she did not feel safe alone with Barry. Suzanne also indicated that Barry was untrustworthy, oppressive, threatening, harmful, and at one point seized her phone. Initially, there was some doubt as to whether Suzanne was murdered. However, that doubt has been removed. Barry had plenty of time to murder his wife, transport her body, bury her in a shallow grave, and clean the crime scene. Suzanne's remains were found directly south of where she lived, and yet Barry drove north on Sunday, May 10, 2020. It seems convenient that his alibi involved him traveling in the exact opposite direction. Making a trip to Broomfield on a Sunday was suspicious. There was a landscaping job there for Barry starting on Monday, but he did not need to be there a day early. Furthermore, he did not inform his coworkers about what he was doing. When Barry was in Broomfield, he was captured on video disposing of trash bags in several different locations. There was no evidence of a struggle where Suzanne's bicycle was discovered. How could a stranger have abducted her without a struggle? Suzanne's sunglasses and hydration backpack were found in her vehicle, which makes it seem like she never went for a bicycle ride in the first place. On May 9, Suzanne sent messages to her boyfriend just after 2 p.m., but there was no activity on her phone after 2:30 p.m. Barry put his own cell phone in airplane mode at 2:47 p.m. This makes it seem like he was trying to keep his location a secret. There are inconsistencies in Barry's story regarding what he did in the hours leading up to Suzanne's disappearance. On May 9, 2020, data from Barry's phone indicated he was running all around his house. He told the police he was chasing a chipmunk. Barry claimed he went to bed at around 8 p.m. on May 9. However, according to data from his truck, it was backed up toward the house at around 9:30 p.m. Barry said his alarm woke him up on May 10 at 4:30 a.m., but his alarm was not set. Both his phone and his pickup truck were moving in the 3 a.m. hour. In his initial story to the police, Barry never mentioned turning west on Highway 50 on May 10, but later he admitted that he did. He said he was following an elk down the highway at 4:30 a.m. Suzanne's bicycle helmet was later found near where Barry had been driving that morning. In the Morphew house, the police found a broken door, which was not there when the family moved in. In a photo that was taken 3 days after his wife went missing, scratch marks can be seen on Barry's arm. In Barry's dryer, investigators found a plastic needle cover for a tranquilizer dart. In Barry's gun safe, they found a dart gun and accessories used to inject tranquilizer into darts. Barry told the police that he used the darts to immobilize deer in order to cut off their antlers. One popular brand of deer tranquilizer is called BAM. Barry told investigators he owned BAM and admitted that he disposed of this tranquilizer during his trip to Broomfield, Colorado. This particular brand of tranquilizer just happens to contain the same 3 drugs found in Suzanne's system. Moving to the exculpatory factors, there are no witnesses to the murder, no video. In the summer of 2020, DNA from at least one unknown male was found in several places, including Suzanne's bicycle helmet, carpet by her bed, stairs of her house, and her Range Rover. Through a partial match, the DNA from her vehicle has been tied to unsolved cases involving assaults of a sexual nature from other states. The police had used Barry's cell phone data to determine he was running around to various areas of his house on the day he allegedly killed his wife, but these movements could be explained by a phenomenon called static drift. It's possible the phone never actually moved. The tranquilizer gun found in Barry's residence was inoperable and had not been fired in quite some time. The clothing found in and around the shallow grave where Suzanne's remains were located is consistent with what a person might wear when riding a bicycle. When considering all the evidence, do I believe that Barry Morphew is guilty? Here are my thoughts on this. Before the toxicology results, I was convinced that Barry was guilty in reality, but not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. The case was gliding on a razor's edge between guilty and not guilty. Now that the toxicology results are in, my view has changed. Tranquilizer found in one of Suzanne's bones is connected to the same kind of tranquilizer Barry admitted to possessing and getting rid of. At this point, I am convinced of Barry's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, but just barely. The unidentified DNA is still a problem. Maybe the DNA came to be in all those places through some innocent process, or perhaps Barry sedated Suzanne and gave her to an accomplice to murder. This strategy allowed Barry to focus on cleaning the crime scene and constructing his alibi. There are still many unanswered questions in this case that the state should clear up, if possible. For example, can the police identify the mysterious DNA? Genetic genealogy is a possibility. Was DNA or other evidence recovered from Suzanne's clothing? Can the bullet be matched to a weapon, including one Barry owned or had access to? Have there been any other crimes in the area involving animal tranquilizer? Is this something that a serial killer has been using, or does Suzanne's death represent the only reported instance? The answers to these questions may guide the state's decision to pursue prosecution again. Now moving to my final thoughts. There is no question that someone murdered Suzanne Morphew. It was either Barry or some mysterious, unidentified perpetrator. The idea that a stranger could have killed her is difficult to believe in light of the tranquilizer discovery. What would Barry have people believe? His wife had a 2-year affair. She's getting ready to leave him. He departs on a mysterious journey before she disappears. Somehow, a random killer discovers that Barry has an affinity for animal tranquilizer and decides that he will also use animal tranquilizer in his crime. The killer attacks Suzanne just as she comes out of her house before she can grab her sunglasses and hydration backpack. He takes her in the opposite direction that Barry went, murders her, and dumps her body. He does all this despite having no motive. Either Barry is guilty, or there is a killer out there who worked very diligently to frame him. One last observation. I find it curious that the theme of this case, from Barry's perspective, is wildlife. He invoked many different animals during his discussions with the police. For example, he said he chased a chipmunk around his house, followed an elk down a highway, and suggested that a mountain lion could have killed his wife. I guess one of those lazy mountain lions that uses animal tranquilizer. Now the predator doesn't have to work hard to catch up with the prey. The mountain lion is probably like, why didn't I think of this tranquilizer idea a long time ago? It seems like a strange twist of fate that Barry involved so much wildlife, yet may be undone by the presence of wildlife tranquilizer. He would have been better off if he could have only sedated his desire to weave animals into a story. Those are my thoughts in the case of Barry and Suzanne Morphew. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.